Hello to all you healthy blood pressure warriors. My name is Darren Jones, and in this video, I'm going to talk about the 3 gotchas on low-carb diet food labels. If you want to lose weight fast, one of the best eating plans around is the low-carb diet. By eating fewer carbs, you force your body to use fat for fuel. Unfortunately, your brain and muscles can't really use fat directly, and so it converts fat to something it can use, which is ketones. It takes a lot of fat to make a few ketones, which means, on a low-carb diet, you lose fat and weight quickly and easily. Of course, keeping your carb intake low means you have to be careful about what you eat. Unlike most diets, where you simply have to eat less, with a low-carb diet you need to consider the food you eat to ensure your carb intake remains at around 50 grams or less per day. This will keep you in a state of ketosis, which is the term used to describe when ketone levels rise above normal in your blood. Consuming too many grams of carbs will kick you out of ketosis, which will derail your weight loss efforts, and nobody wants that to happen. Subsequently, low-carb dieters must take the time to read food labels to ensure that they don't inadvertently sabotage their progress by consuming more carbs than they should. This should be a simple process, but this is not always the case. Food labels are not always accurate. This might be by accident, but can also be by design. According to the FDA, food labels are actually allowed to be as much as 30% off, and that's a big margin for error. In addition, food labels are often written using vague terms that can be misleading. Words like natural, light, diet, wholesome, and traditional have no real nutritional meaning, but suggest that whatever you're buying is good for you, when this is not necessarily the case. When it comes to food labels, it's a case of buyer beware. Read the small print to ensure you are not being misled, accidentally or on purpose. Also, watch out for these 3 gotchas that could slow or even halt your weight loss progress. Gotcha number 1: no added sugar. Carbohydrates, no matter what their source, are eventually broken down and converted into glucose in your body. Glucose is a sugar. Actually, glucose is the sugar that all carbs and other sugars are made from, and also the main fuel when ketones aren't present for your brain and muscles. Just because a food has no added sugar, it doesn't mean it doesn't contain sugar. If it's got carbs in it, it's got sugar in it, whether it was added during the manufacturing process or not. When most people think of sugar, they usually imagine piles of tiny, white, sweet-tasting granules, but sugar comes in many other forms, natural or otherwise. And don't think natural sweeteners are any better. They're probably a form of sugar also. Just because a food states that no sugar was added, doesn't mean that it doesn't contain a lot of sugar. Make sure you read the nutritional breakdown and look for the number of grams of carbs your chosen food contains. That's much more important than any boast of no sugar added. Gotcha number 2: portion sizes. Only 5 grams of carbs per serving might sound like the ideal food for a low-carb dieter, but wait a moment. How big is a serving? In many cases, a serving is a very small amount of the food in question, and not representative of what a normal person might actually eat. On a packet of cookies, for example, a serving normally refers to 2 cookies. With cereal, it's usually something like 2 ounces, not counting any milk you might add. Many of us base our sizes on a much more arbitrary measure, the size of your cereal bowl, for example. Food manufacturers purposely list small serving sizes to make the nutritional profile of their foods seem better than they really are. Make sure you calculate the real size of a serving to ensure you aren't eating more carbs than you realize. A lot of even a low-carb food could result in a sizable carb intake. Gotcha number 3: total carbs vs net carbs. Food labels contain a lot of information. This is a good thing, but can also lead to confusion. Fats, for example, will be listed by total grams per serving and also broken down into the different types of fat contained in the product, including grams of saturated and unsaturated fat, plus trans fats. It's quite easy to misread a food label and focus only on one type of fat, and miss the total fat number, which is the one that's important. Carb figures can be equally confusing. The carbohydrate content of most foods is broken down into starches, sugar, and fiber. And while they're all related to one another, each one behaves very differently in your body. For example, fiber is a good carb, in that it is indigestible, contains no calories, provides no sugar, doesn't cause your insulin levels to rise, and will not affect ketosis. Carbs themselves, usually listed as starches and sugar, will kick you out of ketosis in no time flat. A food might be low sugar but still be high in starches. Make sure you take into account the different types of carbs in your food so you can make a more informed choice. Fiber is good for you and should not be avoided. Your intake of starches and sugar, on the other hand, should be kept to a minimum. A high fiber content does not necessarily mean a high carb content. In the same way, low sugar doesn't mean low carb. Here's how you define total carbs. Total carbs equals sugars plus starches plus fiber. And here's how you define net carbs. NET carbs equals total carbs minus fiber. Taking the time to become more food label savvy will make sticking to a low-carb diet much easier and more rewarding. Avoiding hidden carbs means you will have less trouble hitting into and staying in ketosis, which will help you lose weight faster and keep the weight off.
Hi there, if you suffer from high blood pressure like I do, and you want to receive my educational videos about how to lower your blood pressure, I'd like to ask you to do 3 simple things right now. Number 1, click the subscribe button right there. And then number 2, click on the bell icon right down there so that I can notify you the moment I release a new video. And number 3, watch another one of my more popular healthy blood pressure videos right over there. Okay, thanks for watching and have a happy and healthy day.